No sick days, no screw-ups, no second chances. That was the rule. Not one they printed in the employee handbook, just the one that kept me sane. You show up, you deliver, you cover for other people's mistakes without letting your name get attached. You become reliable, predictable, necessary. That's how you survive. My name is Richard Hall. I'm 58 years old, and until 3 hours ago, I was Senior Systems Director at Novascore Solutions, a mid-sized tech infrastructure firm that grew fat on early cloud contracts and then sold itself to a VC firm with a glossy logo and too much money. I'd been there since the beginning, when we had folding chairs and wired mice, when we still paid for coffee filters out of pocket, when there wasn't a single thing happening inside those servers that I didn't personally configure, patch, or rewrite by hand. I used to joke that I had been with the company longer than the walls. Turns out, the walls got to stay. The email came through as I was finishing up a server rollback. Subject line: Quick culture alignment touch base. No details, just a location, 11:58 a.m., Glassroom C. The kind of calendar invite you don't decline. I knew before I even clicked accept. You don't schedule quick touch bases unless something's already been decided. And you don't choose Glassroom C unless you want transparency to feel like mercy. I arrived on time, as always. Tessa Landon was already seated, legs crossed, blazer a little too red, a bottle of kombucha sweating on a coaster beside her MacBook. She stood when I walked in, smiled like she'd rehearsed it. "Richard, thanks for coming in on such short notice." Across from her sat Harper, HR liaison, fresh out of grad school, had the soft, untested look of someone who still thought empathy was policy. She avoided my eyes the second I stepped into the room. Good. At least one of us was honest. Tessa gestured toward the chair. "Let's keep this quick. I know you're busy." I sat, folded my hands, said nothing. She launched straight in. "First of all, I want to thank you for everything you've done for Novascore over the years. Your dedication is, truly, legendary. 30 years is no small thing." I didn't nod, just watched her. The kombucha bottle hissed slightly in the silence. "We're shifting," she said, "strategically, from legacy systems to a more agile, forward-facing brand culture. And in that shift, we need people who align with where we're going, not just where we've been." That's when Harper slid the folder across the table. It was thinner than I expected. "You're not what we're looking for anymore," Tessa said, like it was a compliment. "And that's not a reflection of your work. It's just evolution." I glanced down at the folder, but didn't touch it. "Who replaces me?" She smiled again, brighter this time. "We've brought on a really dynamic intern to help us reimagine our digital identity. She's got an incredible TikTok following. Very plugged in." I pictured the girl. I'd seen her filming lip syncs beside the coffee machine, wearing LED sneakers and calling everyone bestie. Tessa went on, "We'll offer you a generous severance, 6 months, plus your full benefits through the end of the year. And of course, we'd appreciate a smooth transition." I smiled. It wasn't a performance. It was habit. Then I stood, extended my hand, and shook hers. Her grip was too firm, overcompensating. Harper mumbled, "Thank you for everything, Richard," like she was apologizing through a locked door. I turned without a word and walked out. I didn't pack my desk, didn't collect the framed photo of my daughter from 2009, didn't even shut down my terminal. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, waited in silence. When the doors opened, I stepped in and reached into my pocket. My coat was light. No briefcase, no box of belongings, just the keys I'd carried since the old server room days. And attached to them, a small metal flash drive that looked like a novelty bottle opener. Nobody ever questioned it. Tessa had seen it a dozen times. She never knew it carried full disk backups of the company's core infrastructure, cloned nightly, admin access preserved. Because when you build something from scratch, you don't let it go that easy. I stepped out into the parking lot, watched the sun bounce off the electric SUV she probably leased with company equity, and opened my phone. Calendar, new event. Subject, let's begin. Recipient, t.landon@novascore.io. Time, 3 hours from now. No body text, no details. Just a blank invite from a burner domain she wouldn't recognize until it was too late. They thought I left quietly. They were wrong. The garage is quiet now. Just the hum of low-voltage fans, the rhythmic pulse of cooling units, and the soft blinking of LEDs in the dark. I don't turn on the overheads. Fluorescents are too harsh. They ruin the focus. I prefer the glow of machines doing exactly what they were built to do. Quietly, efficiently, without needing validation. The setup doesn't look like much. That's by design. 3 old tower units beneath the bench. 2 routers, no logos, no stickers. The cables are color-coded but not labeled. I know them by feel. I've spent more time in this space than in my bedroom. I built it back when the company moved to a hybrid cloud model, when they said on-prem infrastructure was obsolete. That was the year Tessa Landon joined as brand engagement strategist. I remember her saying the word disruption 5 times in her first meeting. I stopped counting after that. Most people don't realize that when you migrate everything to the cloud, you still need someone to configure the skeleton that holds it up. That was me. I was the one who patched every single server, who built out the original secure tunnel before NovasCore even had 2-factor authentication. I knew the bones of the company better than the board did, but people forget, especially when the surface gets prettier. Everyone assumed I was just a systems guy, the one you called when printers jammed or permissions got locked. They didn't know I maintained an off-grid mirror of the network, a full clone that updated every night at 2:07 a.m. via a redundant backup node hardwired through a blind loop in the firewall. It was originally meant as disaster recovery, a failsafe. Then it became a habit. And finally, a shield. I wake up the system with a single keystroke, no boot screen, no OS logos, just command lines and silence. The archive's intact, 12 years deep, time-stamped snapshots, Slack logs, version histories, commit notes, payroll deltas, every layer of the company preserved in raw format, untouched, unedited. I start with internal communications. I don't search my name, not yet. That would be too easy. I start with hers. Tessa Landon. The index returns 2,394 unique hits. I narrow the range, past 90 days. Then cross-reference with Derek McCall, our CFO. The first flag hits in a thread labeled Strategic Transition Options. Private channel. No other members. Tessa. Let's pull the trigger before his equity cliffs. He's too analog. Derek. Agreed. Old guard has to go. New era. Analog. That's what I was to them. A worn-out jackknife in a world obsessed with Bluetooth. I scroll down. They had meetings, off-site, undisclosed. They'd been planning it since January. They even ran PR scenarios in case word leaked. One option was to frame it as a collaborative evolution. Another was to simply bury my name. Let the past rot in silence. But I'm not looking for ego wounds. I'm looking for motive. I switch to the financials. Payroll ledgers show a string of vendor payments over the past 6 months, all under a marketing services umbrella. Recurring invoices labeled Outreach/Engagement Activation. Nothing unusual on the surface, except the routing numbers don't match the legitimate vendor database. They trace back to a Delaware LLC. Newly incorporated, shell structure, 0 social media presence, no web footprint. I run the registered agent through my own lookup tool. something I built after a partner embezzled funds back in 2008. 3 hits. The third is a residential condo unit in downtown San Jose. The name attached to the deed? Eric Vass, Tessa's ex-fiancé. She used to talk about him like a ghost. That guy taught me never to trust anyone, she said once, sipping Pinot at a holiday party. But also how to build an empire. I thought it was metaphor. Turns out, it was architecture. They funneled over $220,000 into that LLC in the past 6 months, all approved by Derek. Hidden in line items that no one reads because they sound like HR noise. Wellness consulting. Digital brand pivot packages. One was labeled mindfulness training deliverables. They weren't just squeezing me out. They were clearing a path. Tessa needed someone out of the way before the auditors circled back to Q4. Someone disposable. Someone analog. I close the terminal and lean back in the chair. It creaks under my weight. Familiar sound. The thing about building a system from scratch is this. You always leave yourself a back door. Not to spy, not to sabotage, just to be safe, just in case the wrong people took the helm. Looks like the wrong people did. And they didn't just fire me. They made me their alibi. The co-working suite smelled like too much lavender and not enough dust. A little too curated, like someone staged it for a productivity ad. Fern in the corner, coffee pods stacked like trophies, whiteboards with motivational phrases nobody ever erases. I picked the farthest cubicle, back against the wall, facing the only exit. Some habits die harder than others. I hadn't used this place in years. Booked it under a name I haven't responded to since 2003. They didn't check ID, just swiped the prepaid card and handed me a badge that said, "Hello, my name is Raymond." Fine. Today, I was Raymond. I slid the duffel bag onto the desk and unzipped it slow. 2 burner phones, both unlocked with analog keypad sequences. No biometrics. 1 field-grade laptop with air-gapped OS, optical drives, and a manual kill switch for the wireless card, and a black leather notebook. No logo, no label, just 4 names written in pencil on the inside cover. 3 are dead. The 4th hasn't returned my last call. But that's not what I came here to use. I powered up the laptop. The startup hum was low and clean. No alerts, no backdoor pings, just raw, local power. I ran a series of sweeps to confirm the connection was ghosted, daisy-chained, through 5 relays, before bouncing to a secure sandbox instance. Then I pulled up the 3 files I created the night before. Canary traps. I learned the trick a long time ago. When you don't know who's leaking the intel, you plant bait. Identical documents with 1 small variation in each version. Nothing too obvious. Just enough to act as a signature. Then you watch, you wait, and you see which version surfaces in the wild. Each audit report I modified looked identical at first glance. Same headers, same footers, same executive summary. But hidden in the transactional logs were 3 different errors. One listed an inflated invoice to a non-existent vendor. Another included a payroll anomaly under a project code that had been closed last year. The third flagged a bonus payout with an incorrect timestamp, just slightly misaligned with its corresponding approval record. These weren't real flags. But to someone trying to siphon money out of the system, they'd look like mistakes worth hiding or exploiting. And I buried each one inside different secure folders, each with a unique access path. Then I left. No alerts, no triggers, just 3 quiet hooks in the water. 36 hours later, the first one surfaced. A ping hit my dead drop inbox. An anonymous attachment from a Proton Mail account I hadn't touched since 2017. The file was a download log. A single IP traced back to a private email server hosted out of Tallahassee. The sender used an alias, but the packet metadata told me more than a name ever could. The version that leaked? the one with the fake bonus payout timestamp, that had only been uploaded to a folder tagged Brand Ops Q1 Audit, Tessa's private drive. And the email server? It rerouted through a reverse proxy registered under a corporate block belonging to that same Delaware LLC I traced in the garage. The one that conveniently shares an address with a high-rise unit belonging to Eric Vass, her ex. The connection was clean, predictable, sloppy in the way arrogance always is. She wasn't just hiding something. She was feeding him. That's how the laundering worked. Bonuses were approved internally under inflated influencer marketing costs, then rerouted through Eric's shell firm, reclassified as engagement activations, and then siphoned into split accounts. One for him, one for her. It wasn't just unethical, it was surgical. Weaponized branding as a cover for corporate theft. They needed me gone because I'd built the original systems with too many checks, too many flags, too many routines that looked harmless, unless you were the one breaking the pattern. I sat still for a long moment. Let the weight settle. Not anger, just gravity. Then I opened a new window and composed a single email. No greeting, no body, just a subject line, internal leak confirmed. Attached, sample. I uploaded the Slack screenshot. Tessa's message to Derek. Let's pull the trigger before his equity cliffs. He's too analog. Time stamped. Verified. The recipient? A tech journalist I used to brief off the record back when Novascore was still fighting off patent trolls in 2012. I hadn't spoken to her in 6 years. But she knew how to recognize a real thread when it landed in her lap. I encrypted the file, sent it through the secure relay. Then I deleted the message from the outbox, shut down the laptop, and slid it back into the duffel. Left the burner phones off, their batteries removed, resting in opposite corners of the bag, like sleeping dogs. Outside, the sun was setting over downtown. Shadows stretched long across the glass towers, and influencer billboards and startup slogans painted on buses. None of it felt real. They think the game just started, but I've already counted the pieces, and there aren't enough to save them. The screen glows in front of me, low brightness, zero audio. I don't need to hear her voice. I remember it too well. Tessa's sitting in her luxury condo, barefoot silk robe hanging just off one shoulder, like she's posing for a magazine that doesn't exist. The open floor plan behind her is spotless, curated. Hardwood floors that never creak. A single pendant light over the kitchen island, casting soft gold across white marble. She's laughing, holding a glass of red in her left hand, phone in the right, knees pulled up like a college girl sharing gossip after midterms. The wine's expensive. I recognize the label. 2006 Brunello. She kept it hidden behind a row of discount blends in the break room during our last acquisition sprint. Said it was for the next milestone moment. I guess this counts. On the screen, I watch her swirl the glass and speak into her phone. Her lips move with too much ease. She's talking to someone who makes her feel untouchable. I already know who it is. Eric Vass. The man she swore ruined her trust in people. The one she described to me once with a smirk and a sigh. He could lie through his teeth while looking you dead in the eye, and you'd thank him for the truth. They're laughing now. Together. The kind of synchronized cadence you don't fake. The same rhythm I once heard in the office when she pitched the board on cultural realignment. The same laugh that followed her sentence. He's not what we're looking for anymore. I don't react. Just sip black coffee from a ceramic mug and watch her through her own camera. Compromised weeks ago through a firmware exploit I embedded when the company switched to those sleek new aluminum shell laptops. Marketing loved them. So did IT. Nobody asked why the BIOS firmware auto-checked for silent updates. Nobody ever does. Her voice hits a pitch that tells me she's bragging now, probably about the intern. The TikTok metrics were skyrocketing. I checked them myself. That little dance she did by the break room got picked up by 2 retail brands and a podcast network. A minor viral hit. Gen Z engagement gold. That's the decoy, the sugar. Keep the board distracted while the real money moves in silence. She and Eric were using fake influencer contracts as siphons, laundering bonuses into payouts disguised as outreach packages. The files were airtight, until they weren't. At 6:07 p.m., her laptop flashes. A small red banner across the screen. Internal audit scheduled. Urgent. She blinks. Mid-sentence. The smile doesn't vanish, but it twitches. A hairline fracture across porcelain. She taps the touchpad, clicks, leans closer, eyes scan too fast. Her phone buzzes. She answers on reflex. No smile now. I can't hear the voice on the other end, but I know the script. It's legal. The IRS flagged vendor inconsistencies during a routine reconciliation request. There's a problem with the Delaware LLC. It's showing as both payee and consultant, cross-referenced against NovaScore's corporate debit logs. She's still on the call when the second alert hits her inbox. The board just received a 64-page forensic breakdown of internal financial discrepancies, documented line by line. It includes vendor transaction chains, time-stamped approval anomalies, and a silent, unedited screen recording of her Slack video chat with Eric, where she casually says, "Just pad the invoice. Nobody checks the project codes anymore." I watch her scroll. She taps again. This time her fingers hesitate. Her inbox pings once more. Another calendar invite. Subject, "Let's finish." No sender name. No details. Just a time. 8 a.m. sharp. Location, boardroom A. Her hand lowers. The wine glass hangs midair. Forgotten. She tries to stand but sinks back into the bar stool instead. She closes the laptop, then reopens it. Like that might undo it. Like the truth depends on screen state. She whispers something I can't hear. Something tight. Something aimed at no one. Then she drains the rest of the wine. I lean back in my chair. Let the silence settle. She thought she'd buried the past beneath performance. Thought new hires, brighter lobbies, and curated content would erase the foundation. But foundations remember, especially the ones built by people who still believe in structural integrity. She toasted to her future with a $200 bottle of wine, not knowing the cork was mine. The glass room hasn't changed. Same polished table. Same ergonomic chairs that never quite feel comfortable. Same panoramic view of a city too distracted to care what happens behind tinted windows. But the air is different. It's heavier, like something just finished dying here. 1 week ago, I shook Tessa's hand and walked out of this room with nothing but my coat and a flash drive. Today, I walked back in, invited, not as an employee, not even as a former one. The message came through encrypted channels from the interim board chair. They wanted me to assist with strategic continuity during the transition, which was a polite way of saying, "Please help us clean up the blood." Tessa's under house arrest. They didn't send flowers. Derek, the CFO, resigned before sunrise the morning after the audit files hit. His exit email was 3 lines long. Legal is in a state of controlled collapse. 2 pending investigations, a full internal review, and a compliance officer who hasn't stopped vomiting since Tuesday. I'm let in by a junior associate I've never met. He offers coffee. I decline. He fidgets with his tablet, mumbling something about agenda items. I don't respond. There's nothing they can put on a screen that I haven't already seen. The board filters in slowly. The ones who made it back from whatever resort or capital round they were hiding in. All of them look tired. Expensive suits, loose collars. Nobody meets my eyes for more than a second. Chairman Monroe, the only one who ever called me by name, clears his throat and gestures for me to sit. I do. They go through their prepared statement first, legal approved, every word sanded down until it means nothing. They call the situation regrettable and unexpected. They call me a vital piece of Novascor's institutional memory. Then they offer me the role. Not permanent, just long enough to stabilize, to restore trust. I let the silence stretch before I answer. I'll do it, I say, but only on one condition. Monroe blinks. Of course. I choose who takes over when I leave, someone who understands longevity, not virality. There's a beat of silence. Then nods. They're too tired to argue, too afraid not to agree. And I don't want compensation, I add. No equity, no title, not even a desk. The legal rep in the corner starts to object, but Monroe waves him off. Understood. I sign the one-page agreement. No fanfare, no applause. The meeting drifts into muted logistics. I say little. Just nod once, decline the coffee again, and stand. When I step out into the hallway, the receptionist looks up. Same girl. She freezes when she sees me, then stands. Mr. Hall, I didn't know. I hold up a hand. You're fine. Keep going. She sits slowly, like she's not sure if she's part of the wreckage or the cleanup. The elevator ride down is quiet, just me and the soft hum of the motor. I exit through the lobby, past the waterfall wall they installed to impress visiting VCs. Water always finds its way out. So do ghosts. The truck is right where I left it. A dent in the bumper, coffee stains on the console. It doesn't care who's in charge upstairs. It just runs. I drive home with the windows down. When I get there, I disable everything. First, the backup drives. I wipe each one manually, then pull the power and drop the cores into a saltwater bath I prepared last night. The fizz is soft, mechanical, a quiet surrender. Then the laptop. Drive scrubbed, SSD shattered. The duffel bag is burned in the steel drum behind the garage. The smoke doesn't smell like revenge. It smells like closure. I take the black leather notebook, the one with 4 names, and tear it page by page. I don't rush. Each one folds, tears, crumbles into the fire. When it's gone, I sit in the garden. No screens, no feeds. Just a plain ceramic mug and coffee gone lukewarm. The sun rises slow, like it doesn't want to intrude. Birdsong drifts in from the fence line. A squirrel runs across the power line above the rosemary bush. For the first time in a long time, there's no signal in my pocket. No pending ping. No silent thread waiting to be pulled. Just breathe. Just earth. Just me. She said I wasn't what they were looking for. Turns out, I never was. I was what they needed.